The November project was about testing how long it took different pollutants to diffuse into water. Our question was, what will be the alkalinity, pH, and chlorine level of the polluted water after 3 weeks of sitting? This project took place between November 21st and December 13th, 2017, although the project was later extended to January 9th for all of the samples except the control water. Our hypothesis was that weed killer would have the biggest change in alkalinity and pH at the end of the month. We believe this because according to our research, it can take weed killer up to 70 days to dissolve in water. We also believe that the plastic will slowly increase in pH and alkalinity as the plastic begins to dissolve in the water. The project involved 5 different samples of 350 milliliters of water. 4 of these samples were given 10 milliliters of pollutant. These pollutants were sawdust, bleach, plastic, and weed killer. The samples were then left in a window and stirred every day for 3 weeks. As you can see by the charts, the chlorine level stayed basically the same for all of the pollutants with the exception of weed killer. Weed killer sometimes contains small levels of chlorine, and this must have begun leaching out of the weed killer as time went on. Every pollutant saw a steady increase in alkalinity as the weeks went on. Most pollutants also saw a steady increase in pH over that same time, with the exception of weed killer, whose pH dropped the same week we started recording the increased chlorine levels in the sample. Our hypothesis was partially correct. The weed killer tied for the largest change in pH level over the experiment, from 4.5 to 3.5 at the end of the experiment. However, it did not have the largest change in alkalinity. Plastic had the largest change in alkalinity from 50 to 170. This was likely due to the plastic slowly degrading in the water, as we observed in our observations on December 8, 2017. The weed killer had the largest change in chlorine level from 0 to 1. This was likely due to the weed killer degrading and releasing some of the chlorine into the water from inside the weed killer. If we were to repeat this experiment, we would use more water, as we were forced to constantly refill the water in the jars due to how fast the water was evaporating.
In part 2 of the project, we created a system to filter the water. We used gravel, which traps larger sediments, then we used charcoal, which, once hit with water, opens millions of pores, which filter the water alternately. We used a terry cloth, which absorbs the more fine pollutants and sediments while letting water seep through. Our goal wasn't to make it drinkable, but instead to create gray water. Gray water is defined as water that is usable for watering plants. We also wanted it to be in a habitable range. We believe that the research shows how to build a filter and that it will be able to clean the water. This is because charcoal has water cleaning properties once water hits activated charcoal, as said before. Also, gravel will filter out larger sediments and terry cloths will filter small sediments of pollutants. We see here that the filter did its job for the most part. It successfully raised the pH from a non-habitable range to a range of 6 to 7 pH. 7 is the pH of water. Also, the overall alkalinity was raised to a range that would make the water cleaner and safer. So what we found with our filter is that, for the most part, it does its job. This is seen with the weed killer because its pH is highly acidic, but we were able to get it into a healthy range. It jumped from 5 pH to 6 pH, which on a scale is considered neutral range. We also were able to make pond water become in a habitable range of 6.8, which is similar to pH water. According to our graph, it shows after 3 passes in the filter, the overall pH of the polluted water has gone close to the range of habitable. Now, the pH of the pond water only got to 6 pH, but as said previously, that's in the neutral range. The graph shows the alkalinity stayed the same for plastic polluted water. Then in pond water, the alkalinity increased to where it is capable of keeping the water on the clean side. But it's interesting, the weed killer was already at a good range, but after 3 passes, the weed killer dropped to 140 parts per million. There is no graph for chlorine because it did not change significantly.